Hello and welcome. You're watching QTV and you are watching The Week in Review. I'm your host, Ade Darami. And for another week, I have friend and colleague Mamadou Lamin Choi to go through the stories with me. Mr. Choi, as ever, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Darami, for having me.
Thank you. And I really enjoyed your interjections last week.
Thank you.
And to our viewers, it's a simple show. It's called The Week in Review, and it is exactly as it sounds. We take 10 big stories from the week and we go through them in some details. And some stories we spend more time on than others. So don't panic if you think, gosh, they spent 5, 6, 7 minutes on that story. It's meant to be like that. So we've got a story about Mile 2 prisons, and there have been some negative publicity in the press about the prisons, and we've had the PRO come and tell us the real story about what's going on there. Also Churchill's town, every time it rains it gets flooded. What's going to happen about that? And of course there's the implementation of the access to information law. Why is it taking so long to get off the ground 2 years after it was enacted? And of course, we can't do a story these days, or we can't do a program these days, rather, without mentioning Niger. So, of course, we'll be looking at what's happening in Niger. And interesting, inter-party committee, members from all the political parties, they went to meet His Excellency President Barrow. These are 5 of the stories, but there'll be 10. So lots more to look forward to. So let's get cracking, shall we? The first story is the one I mentioned at the top of the show. Mile 2 prisons. There's been a lot of negative publicity recently, and the PRO has come out fighting to tell the real story. Have a look and have a listen.
The Gambia Prison Service is very cognizant when it comes to medical services. When you talk about medical, we are talking about the primary medical service that is provided for. The Gambia government has also committed budgetary, which will be able to sustain us. Not only that, the Ministry of Ministry of Health quarterly also provides medical assortments to the Gambia Prison Service in order to consolidate the efforts of the budget that is within hand. Not only that, we have also improved to train medical personnel, BSc holders and diploma holders when you come to nursing.
Gambia Prison Service PRO there, I beg your pardon. Mr. Choi, as I said in the lead up to that, there's been a lot of criticism in both the conventional and social media. And I guess the prison service had to come out because they don't want people to think that Mile 2 is as it was in the bad old days.
I think it will be, interesting to also have access and see the condition
We've requested that.
of prisoners.
Yes.
Of course, this is this message the PRO is giving is in reaction to what they deem to be false information. And without the reaction and without the people seeing what is ongoing, there will be speculations,
Sure.
and there is that atmosphere of uncertainty
Sure.
about what is going on. So good PR strategy would demand that at least journalists be allowed access to see what is ongoing. Not only that, if reforms are happening in the prisons, of course there should be proactive communication
Sure.
to the public, showing them examples of things
Sure.
that are ongoing, which is part of the
Rather than the
the
reactive
reforms,
stuff that we're getting
rather
now.
than being reactive. And this is what we have seen in many government institutions. Sometimes even journalists, would want somehow our work helps them,
Yeah.
in certain way
This is
to
it.
put out, because our duty here as journalists is not only to show negative information.
And it's not to embarrass anybody.
Yes.
It's actually just to get the right and the true information out to the public.
Yes.
Yeah.
If there is positive information, out of goodwill,
Sure.
I go cover it and show people that this is what is happening.
Sure.
And people will judge whether it is good or bad. But we have seen many of our public institutions being very quite reactive to speculations,
Sure.
to false information. Of course, it is good, but we want to see more proactive measures
Sure.
to sensitize the public, to show the public what is ongoing
Sure.
when it comes to the security sector reform, prisons reforms, and all of that. But our prisons, of course, is not as it used to be in the past.
Sure.
It
was a feared place. You only have to
feared.
mention the name.
Fear, yes,
and
yes.
it struck fear into people.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So, at some point, Jame would describe it as its five-star hotel, that euphemism which was used. But ironically, what happened behind, the doors, the closed doors of that prison was really shocking for many.
Sure.
But now, yes, there has been some government commitments, implementing of reforms, policies are implemented, actions are being taken. But I think people need to see what is ongoing. And you look at our prisons also, they are old.
They're old, and
when this new government came in, came into being, we had all sorts of commitments to expanding, the prisons facilities by building more prisons facilities.
Expanding and improving them.
Yes, expanding and upgrading them. But we still see the same prisons facilities. This Mile 2 was built since in the 1920s.
Thank you for that. And as I said, I suspect we'll be coming back to this story again and again and again. But thank you for your interjection there. Now for a completely different story. One of the things that you'll hear every time there's rain, there are certain places, Igbo Town, Churchill's Town, where the rain really causes havoc. There are many places, but these are just two. So we did a story on Churchill's Town, and I warn you.
National Disaster Management Agency, over 100 cars were stuck in traffic along this route for hours due to flooding caused by heavy and sustained downpour. The gutters along the highway are meant to ease water passage, but many are filled to overflowing with garbage, preventing water from flowing smoothly. The 2023 July-August-September rainfall report forecasts rainfall to be above average to average. The report also highlights that this year's rainfall carries the risk of flooding, which could lead to losses of crop, animal, and livelihoods. Sanat Dahaba, the Executive Director of the National Disaster Management Agency, explains the major cause of the flooding in this area.
What we are experiencing here today is as a result of these canals being blocked and water couldn't move, and some vehicles have been seriously inundated, and which will eventually affect their engine. There is complete paradigm shift when it comes to that. Government now would not build road without attaching a drainage system.
I'm being very naughty here. I wanted it to end on that sentence. Government now would not build a road without a drainage system. What does that tell you, Mr. Choi? That we used to build roads without a drainage system.
Of course, that's the message.
Yeah.
And it's sad that somehow, indirectly he has admitted.
Indeed. He said now there's a
to the
paradigm
fact,
shift.
yes,
We won't do
now
that anymore.
We won't do that anymore. Why were we doing it?
in the first place?
Why were we doing it?
We have rains, and these rains cause flooding. Yeah.
And this is the problem. Every year we talk about the same thing.
Sure.
Since QTV started operation, you look at our coverage every year. Same places, same conditions, same impact of the rain.
I was going to give a word of warning to the viewers that you're not watching a repeat broadcast. This is 2023, by the way. But yes, you're right.
So why are we building roads without proper drainage system?
Yeah, sure.
You go to countries that are very, meticulous or serious about proper infrastructure development. There is drainage system. Not a drainage, because I see we're constructing roads claiming to be also constructing drainages, but alongside the roads. Where is the water going?
Where is it going to flow to?
Yes, where is the destination of the water?
That's right, that's right.
This is a question.
Yes.
You can build a road, of course, but at the end of the day, why you are establishing or constructing those drainages is to channel water to go through it towards a particular destination.
Yeah, absolutely right.
But where is it going? Sure. Now I have seen somehow a policy shift. These feeder roads that are being constructed as part of the OIC roads projects, we have seen some drainages being constructed. But my area of interest is to go and find out where these drainages are being constructed, but where would the water be channeled through to?
And that's a valid point. And again, I've mentioned this many times. Anybody who's watched QTV And I always say to them, if you come to Kairaba Avenue, you go opposite Gamtel, there's a gutter which actually stops there. It doesn't lead anywhere. It starts from the bottom of, Kairaba Avenue, comes past the QCell building, but when it gets to the Gamtel building, that's where it stops. The gutter doesn't continue all the way, and so when it rains, people can come, you'll just see it just banks up and the water just swells and then it goes onto the road. Every time I pass by, I'm totally perplexed by it, and if anybody doesn't believe, I think I'll take a picture today and post it on Twitter or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, at least now, if we come round to now and to the future, it seems that, as he says there, Sanad Dahaba, there's a paradigm shift. We will now not build roads without proper drainage. So I guess that's something to be welcomed.
Absolutely, because if they don't do constructing a road without a proper drainage system, literally you are punishing the people, next to the road.
We see
Because
the evidence with
when
our
it
eyes.
rains, one, it's not good for the roads.
Sure.
Two, it's not good for the environment and the people that are living in the surrounding. So this is really something that they need to work on. Look at the OIC road, the Batil Harding Highway. I'm not saying yet for now any proper drainage system put in place to see.
I mean, I live on the coastal road end of it, and literally opposite my road, they've been digging what they say are going to be part of the gutters that will be either side of it. And what they've also done is they've built the road with what they call a camber. So it's not flat, it's sort of like a hump. And so the rain will cascade and go into those gutters. So at least that thinking is now being employed, but it should have been employed 100 years ago, because in countries that had roads that are 100 years ago, that's what they did.
Absolutely, and it is fortunate. And we look forward to seeing that at least this, change of policy that the government is planning to implement would really bring fruitful results, because if not, you and I will keep coming on here every year, every rainy season, and we talk about these problems. Why do we have engineers? Why do we have, the contractors, in place? These are highly, technical people. They're experts. One will wonder what sort of advice they were giving to government when it comes to construction of roads in this country. Look at the Sukuda, the Sukuda road that we used to take. Now, we have to abandon it because it is in a very poor condition. One, people are being affected, the vehicles are being affected, the road is in poor condition. Every year, you will wonder what has been done.
But listen to Sanad Dahaba there, it sounds as if we've learned our lesson, and now we're not going to make those.
And also people's attitude also, because if the drainages are
which
constructed,
in another place,
is a valid point. People do it. People think these gutters are dump sites.
Yeah, sure.
When I was younger, of course, that's what I used to think, because I grew up seeing people doing it, and I thought that is normal.
Sure.
But it's not normal for people to do, because those drainages are constructed purposely to allow water, movement of water, in order to see that at least people are not affected when there is heavy rain.
Now on to something that's very close to both of our hearts, the access to information law. I've always been interested because when I was in England, I worked on what became Freedom of Information Act in England, and so it's something that I've always been fascinated by and interested in. When it was passed here in the Gambia, I raised my eyebrows somewhat about, are we ready for it? Sad to say, I won't spoil it for you. Have a look, have a listen.
But the law is the law. You have the courts. So if you go and ask for information and they tell you, no, you cannot get this information, just to test the system, that is nothing stopping you from saying, okay, let me take these people to court. Because this is how democracies are built.
And there we heard John Charles Njai there, and he's part of these coalition of CSOs who actually had been raising concerns about the access to information. Mr. Joy, you did a story, Jennifer Sonko did a story. 2 years on, nothing's happened, nothing's in place. Are we surprised?
Yes. One thing is, where I would need to start, is the fact that the law exists.
Oh, yeah, which is what he was saying.
Yes,
Yeah.
the law does exist,
Yeah.
and people must understand this.
Yeah.
Even without the structures to
You can still make the
operationalize it,
request.
people can still make their request
Sure.
and trigger or invoke their right to access that
Sure.
information.
Sure.
Even in the absence of the commission, you can go to the courts.
Sure.
If you're, to go to the courts, maybe the high court. You go to the high court for it to enforce your right to decide whether you've been denied or whatsoever.
Sure.
People were so excited. Everyone was so.
Everyone except me. I have to be honest. I was not excited, and I'll be blunt
so
about
that you are
this.
not surprised
I
then.
never was.
So people were highly excited because it marked the first time civil society and government worked together very closely to deliver this.
Sure.
And Gambia
There seemed to be genuine commitment from the government leading up to the passing of the bill.
There was commission.
Yeah.
There was commitment by government,
Sure.
which shows some leadership, working with civil society organizations to deliver it. And the commitment shouldn't have stopped there because there was an 18-month time frame.
Yeah, that's right.
People think that the act says within 18 months the commission should be established. No, there was a time frame, 18 months to be established.
Sure.
And now it is 2 years.
Yeah. That's
2
right.
years, 25th.
Yeah, go ahead.
It was yesterday, right?
It was yesterday.
Yes, yesterday
That's
marked the
That's right.
2-year anniversary
Yeah.
of the passing or the assenting of the Access to Information Act.
Mm-hmm.
So people are somehow, journalists, the media, the public, are surprised. Surprised in the sense that we saw how much government was committed,
yeah.
worked so hard to deliver this.
Sure.
And the expectations were high that before 2 years on, after its assenting, then now we would have seen the Access to Information Commission in place, all the frameworks that the Act has established for government, of course, through the Ministry of Information to work on, they are still not in place.
Sure. And for me, the reason I kind of smiled when we were going through it is that even on a practical level of getting basic information from government, we had struggled. So when
Still
I came,
struggling.
So when I came to QTV, I wrote to a couple of the ministries and said, I'm trying to find out which government department or which part of the civil service I need to contact to get a list of all the communications officers for all the government ministries, so that as an entity, QTV rather, we can contact them. I never got a reply, not even a go away. We're not even speaking. I never got a reply, and you don't quote me on this. So if we can't even do that, what chance? Yeah.
A similar experience I had, because while I was doing this story, I also, because there is that particular part of the Act that talks about proactive disclosure of information.
Sure.
And that can be facilitated by government institutions having websites that are regularly updated. Even the Ministry of Information does not have a website that is running right now.
Exactly.
The Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, which is spearheading the efforts of, digitalizing government, their website, the last update I saw was 15th December. So I sent them a message.
Sure.
Why have you not been updating this website? At least there should be proactive disclosure.
Sure.
At least annually, to update the public, publish the reports of activities of the ministry, the contracts and all of that.
And story number 4, I mentioned at the top of the show, we can't get away from doing a program these days of this nature without mentioning Niger, our fellow West African neighbors, as they were. And of course, there have been a lot of things happening. One of the things that happened is that the government, the junta, I should say, have actually proposed a 3-year transition. What else do you want to know? ECOWAS are not happy about it. Have a look, have a listen.
Since the coup, diplomatic attempts to negotiate with the military leaders have stalled. The junta had refused to meet delegations from ECOWAS, AU and the UN for dialogue. In addition, Niger had closed its airspace amidst an ECOWAS threat to militarily intervene if diplomacy failed. However, on Saturday, The military government appeared to have opened the doors to dialogue by meeting an ECOWAS delegation, former Nigerian military leader Abdul Salami Abubakar. For the first time since the military took over, the ECOWAS delegation was allowed to meet Bazoum, who together with his wife and son, the military has held hostage since the coup.
I'm smiling because really we're no further along the line to resolving what is a serious crisis in ECOWAS, Mr. Choi. That was your voice we heard there in the story. You and I have been following this keenly. The authorities in Niger, the junta, seem to want to entrench themselves to the point of saying a transition will be done after 3 years. ECOWAS have rejected that out of hand and say, no, you have to hand over immediately. But diplomacy seems to be happening because it's a fast-moving thing. So even as they're rejecting it on the one hand, people are going and now they actually are receiving ECOWAS delegations.
The diplomatic door is open, and I have seen the junta expressing that they are open to diplomacy. After rejecting it
out of hand. Yes, quite. Yes,
because they were not happy with how the communications were being done. The threats coming, the sanctions and all of that.
Sanctions, threat of military force. Yes, quite.
And all of that, they were not happy.
Sure.
So this goes to tell you that it is only diplomacy that can work.
Sure.
So there has been some change of tone, change of language between ECOWAS and the military junta in Niger.
Sure.
And I see somehow that is also bringing some results. The fact that they were able to, the fact that they allowed the ECOWAS delegation to see the
interim president.
The interim president, constitutionally Bazoum.
Yes. I think the other guy.
Should I say former president now?
I think they called him prime minister. The guy.
No, I mean the one who is held hostage.
That's
Bazoum,
right, Bazoum. Yes, quite.
They
were able to see him.
I was being careful on the title to use for him, whether he's the former president or whatsoever.
The currently deposed president, shall we say?
The deposed president.
Yes, quite.
So the fact that they allowed the ECOWAS delegation to have access and see him, that also was a good step.
Sure.
But military governments usually will propose transition.
Sure. Usually they say 2 years or 3 years.
In the Gambia here, similar thing. I think if my mind can serve me very well, they proposed a 3-year or 2-year transition.
Yeah.
And Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, all of them have also proposed. So what is happening right now shows the direction that the military junta is going towards.
Sure.
That is to entrench themselves, to show that now they are actively operational, to run the affairs of that country, irrespective of whatsoever. So now the stakes are very high on what compromise the two can bring, ECOWAS and the military junta, because without any compromise, if the military junta says, okay, we want 3-year transition, and ECOWAS rejects it and decides that, oh, no, either you do this or by force, that wouldn't work.
Sure.
So there must be dialogue, diplomacy needs to work still to see how best the two parties can come to a compromise to see how best this deadlock could be broken.
Sure, and what we've seen also on both sides is Mali and Burkina Faso have said that any aircraft capability that we have militarily, we will put at the disposal of Niger should there be an attack. So both sides they're talking diplomacy, but at the same time, I guess it's what tends to happen all the time, is that they say speak softly but carry a big stick.
Yes, because if you look at ECOWAS has already activated its standby force.
Sure.
So that is how we expect the communication to go on now.
Yeah.
Well, you play diplomacy, but also be on standby.
Sure.
Yes, because what the communication ECOWAS is saying is all options are on the table.
Yeah.
They want to use diplomacy. Should it fails, by force.
Sure.
So we're also seeing a similar communication from the
Abdul Salami Abubakar made a very interesting statement. He said, let me emphasize this. force is the very, very, very last option. He really emphasized it. I guess that gives us a sense that
it needs to be, yes, it needs to be emphasized.
Sure.
Because when ECOWAS intervenes in that country, it will affect the whole region.
Of course.
It will affect the whole region.
Without a doubt.
Because Mali, Burkina Faso have already pledged support.
Sure.
You know, Algeria, which is close to
Algeria
it, is against military intervention.
That's
so
right.
ECOWAS is, you know, the region is divided.
And
Cape
Verde,
also,
of course, and also, I mean, Cape Verde, because they don't have much of a military capability, really. It's not that they don't want to necessarily. But Algeria, interestingly, the president has offered to meet ECOWAS this weekend to actually see if there's any way that he can help or be part of the negotiations, because what he is saying is that if there is this conflict, a spillover in terms of refugees and so on, well, they'll run into his country.
The whole region could potentially be destabilized because there is some Islamic insurgencies, especially at the Sahel.
Sure.
And now the concentration, the whole attention is now on Niger.
Sure.
And also, if you look, I understand Niger's military also has been displaced, and their concentration right now is on the capital.
Yeah, sure.
You look at if Mali and Burkina Faso also have to to offer their military assistance or capabilities to Niger, somehow they will also compromise on
their own national
security.
Sure.
And ECOWAS intervening, the region is destabilized. That can also have a spillover effect in the sense that another country's military can take advantage of the situation and stage a coup, succeed.
Of course.
So by the time you know, two more coups happen, three.
What they call the domino effect.
Yes. So in that case, how would ECOWAS manage to deal with that kind of a situation, having a whole region destabilized and the economy also seriously affected, because there must be some integration, trade, and all of that. Niger has closed its airspace, which is affecting,
of course,
intergovernmental, interregional integration, trade, and all of that.
That's right. Yeah. So this one, as those who watch QTV regularly will know, that this has actually deserved and had its own at least 2 special shows. It's that big a subject. Well, thank you for that, Mr. Choi. Story number 5, which at the end of it will take us to the midway point. Here in the Gambia, you have an inter-party committee. And recently, they went and they met His Excellency the President, and they had some rather good news. What was it? Have a look.
In fact, the president, we said all political parties should take ownership and at least try to contribute something for the inter-party, so that we can have some of our activities being implemented. And the president take it upon himself as the party leader, not stopping as a party leader, also the president of this country, and trying to also nurture the democracy and the tolerance. He pledges 500,000 to support the activity of the inter-party, so that at least we can achieve some of our aims and objectives, and through them as political parties who establish this IPC.
Established the IPC inter-party committee, and they went to meet the president, and as I said, they had good news. He offered them $500,000 to help with their things. But it seems to be a good thing, where you have people from all the parties coming together in the IPC, the inter-party committee. Is it a good thing?
It is a good thing. Thanks to also efforts by the UNDP. UNDP has offered technical and financial support for the establishing of the inter-party committee. And I understand that there has been some success stories to a point that other countries, have been trying to see how best they can learn. The best example given us, how they can learn from the Gambia's IPC. How were we able to establish this and seeing very sustainable results coming out of it.
They have it in the UK. It's called the All-Party Parliamentary Group, and it's made up of MPs from all parties, literally. Yes. Yes.
So the Inter-Party Committee promotes understanding between and among political parties.
Sure.
It also promotes political pluralism,
sure,
because this is a multi-party democracy where we have many political parties with different political ideologies, sure, philosophies, and all of that. but they all have one interest, and the interest is to take the leadership, to contest in elections, win, and also contribute towards the development of this country.
I was going to say, because it's interesting you said that, because the thread that ran through almost everybody's speech was that, yes, we can have our political interests and they diverge, but the one place where we do converge is about the development of this country, and that has to be paramount above and beyond any party political affiliations.
So it facilitates that. It has created the room for that political understanding among them, and they can leverage on this inter-party committee by resolving some of the political differences that they have, which is having an impact on our national development. So by bringing all of them together under one umbrella, we can discuss and come to a consensus on certain things. Of course, they cannot agree on everything.
That's why they are in different parties.
Yes,
quite.
And that is why they are in different parties with different agenda, with different philosophies, political ideologies, and all of that. But we have seen some, signs of political tolerance happening in our country. We keep having elections that are peaceful. Our campaign, and all of that. The 2021 presidential election. So there is political tolerance, even at the level of the presidency. Of course, we can at some point, each other lashing out, lashing out to each other. This is what happens in multi-party democracy.
Of course, exactly.
If you follow UK politics, if you follow politics,
although America is only two-party politics, Democrats and Republicans, really.
Yes. So if you look at that, is normal, because they are not meant to agree on one thing always. Because if that is the case, then this country would not develop. So we must have a strong opposition to check on government's activities, their policies, to analyze, assess, evaluate, and constructively critique the policies, the programs, and the projects of the government, all also guided by national interest for national development.
Thank you. That's a beautiful phrase to end on. And that takes us exactly nicely to the halfway point. And join us after this break. Don't go away.
The art of juggling is a true spectacle of agility, coordination, and speed. A symbol of progression, precision, and mastery. "5G speed is like having the juggler in your pocket.
Amazing.
With lightning-fast download and upload speeds, you'll easily be able to juggle even the busiest workdays. Whether you're a busy entrepreneur, a creative, or just someone who wants to stay connected. Juggle your tasks with ease with QCell 5G speed. The future is here. It's fast, reliable, and efficient. First brought to you by QCell. We innovate, others follow.
Hello and welcome back. You are watching QTV and you are watching The Week in Review. I'm Ade Darami, your host, and my co-host is friend and colleague Mobudu Lamin Choi. Mr. Choi, thank you for your interjection so far.
Thank you very much, Mr. Darami.
Thank you. And on to story number 6. We were talking about Niger just recently, and there's a man who many people 2 years ago had never heard of him. But by the beginning of this year, or certainly when Russia invaded Ukraine, everybody who had an interest in politics knew who Yevgeny Prigozhin was. Who is he, what is he, and what has happened to him? Have a look.
The Wagner mercenary group, comprising approximately 25,000 fighters, has exhibited its presence in regions such as Ukraine, Syria, and West Africa, acquiring a reputation for its ruthless tactics. It also operates under a decentralized command structure on the continent, offering security to select African leaders in return for access to valuable minerals and other strategic economic and military benefits. A day before the plane crash, which appears to have claimed his life, Prigozhin posted a video which quickly went viral, claiming he was somewhere in Africa. He also claimed his troops would help Africa get real freedom.
And that's the bit that made me smile, that his troops would help Africa get real freedom, Mr. Choi. We have not been able to, we were talking about the sort of Islamist threat in the Sahel, and some of these countries in the Sahel were employing Prigozhin and his Wagner group. And then, just about 2 weeks ago, I read a report that in one country, Burkina Faso, they expected to make $100 million as their payment for helping them defend the country. These countries are supposed to be poor, and yet we are somehow going to be able to find $100 million to pay Prigozhin and Wagner Group. Nonetheless, it appears that he has been killed. We've heard that he's now been identified by DNA and a missing finger on one of his hands, which everybody took to be, yes, that is him. But quite an interesting character.
Quite an interesting character, of course, from being hamburger seller
Right.
to becoming, you know, a very close
friend and
ally
of Putin,
of President Putin. And just 2 months ago, they fell out.
Yes.
In the wake of
yes, in June.
You know, yes, in June, the Wagner, you know, Prigozhin, in a viral video declaring war against you know,
and
against
threatening that they were going to march on Moscow.
Yes, yes, march on Moscow to
Yes.
remove very high,
yes,
you know, or senior,
senior
you know,
army
military,
officers.
army officers,
Yes.
and in the process, some military officers, Russian military officers who were defending the country also died in the process.
Sure.
And people expected, you know, Putin came out and said that those behind this would be punished.
Yes, quite.
You know, and there are speculations that Russia is behind it.
And I'll tell you, before I came on, I checked. At first, Russian media, official media, had not responded, but now they have responded with anger. They said the suggestion that because Putin made that statement and this has happened, the Western media are saying that Putin had a hand in his death because of Putin has come out and offered his condolences to the family, etc., etc. And they've been vehement in their denial. They're not keeping quiet about it anymore. They want the world to know that Putin had nothing to do with this. But as I said, as you've just said, people have their suspicions.
Are trying to make up, you know, so many theories, linking it to what recently happened, leading to the killing of Prigozhin. But of course, it wouldn't be a good story for Russia to come out and own up to, even if they had done so.
Well, this is it. And it was also interesting. And now on to something again that I'm very much interested in. And this is not that I want to be a perpetrator, but in my previous job, I was involved in shutting down online scams. And they have now arrived in the Gambia big time. What am I talking about? This might tell you.
These are people who, the representatives in the Gambia don't know the original owners of this online scamming business. They have never seen their face. They have never interacted in any video conversation, at least according to our investigation and interaction with them. So how it becomes so believable that they even become trainers of people. It's like a hall that when you come, you want to invest in the business, you sit in the hall, the managing director or the director will come and tell you the briefings on how the business is done. And it's like a trap, you know, that if you make the first investment, you'll be able to receive more money. And that encourages you to say that, okay, this is true, and you are encouraged to make more investment. We have seen people who invested in their first investment, maybe spend, for example, $30,000, and we are able to earn $50,000.
The Deputy Police PRO says over 100 people have reported being scammed by this fraudulent online business.
And very good reason why I had that line at the end. 100 people have admitted. The reason it's not in there accidentally, because as I said, in my former life in the UK, I was involved in this. Many people actually probably won't admit that they've been scammed because they're embarrassed, that they've been duped, they've been deceived. But Mr. Choi, it's quite a scary thing that already in a very short space of time, 100 people, some 30,000, some more than that money's gone. You're never going to get it back.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's quite unfortunate, and I have seen that general, for lack of a better term, laziness among people in this country, that anything that comes and the person markets it very well, you tend to buy into it without doing a proper check.
Yeah, quite.
I have been approached.
Right.
I have been approached, but I keep telling people that I'm a journalist, and whatever you want me to get into,
you have an instinct to check things.
Yes, to check.
Yeah.
Because there are things that are too good to be true.
Sure.
Because if you tell me, okay, you invest in this, and after investing in it, you get this amount. Okay, every month. The one who approached me told me, in fact, a relative of mine, that look, this is what is happening now. People can, open their account, they can register, but you have to pay this amount. And when you pay this amount, now this business is an online business. They will be giving you tax to do.
Right,
and after when you do the tax, just click. Do the tax. At the end of the month, you are paid.
Right.
Some are paid up to $3,000. Some are paid up to $9,000. Someone else also approached me and told me. My relative who told me, I told her that this is too good to be true. It's too easy. Why are people lazy, in getting money in this country?
And you've kind of hit the nail on the head. That is exactly why these scams exist. Because people want easy money. Like, oh, you mean I don't have to get up from my house? I can just click a few buttons, hit a few keys, and suddenly there's 9,000 in my account. Okay, why don't I do this?
And every month you get that amount.
Well, this is it. And of course, the reason they call it a pyramid scheme is that the only way it can work is because if more people keep coming into the scheme, the money they pay is what is used to pay everybody else. And so if people stop, the scheme grinds to a halt. And so it's not that it's making money, it's just using money of all the people who are coming into the scheme. But what people should be asking is, as you said, make some inquiries. Where's the profit coming from? What are the goods that they are selling? Are they selling a car, telephone, whatever? They're not selling anything. But somehow there's more money being generated from where and from what? And people don't even stop and think as simply as that.
And to go further, people can also, we should help people also. People should go further to inquire, because any company that is operating in this country has to be registered.
Sure.
To the Ministry of Justice. You can verify.
Sure.
Contact them. I have been, I've been contacted by this company.
Sure.
This is what they've told me. Ask the company whether they have registered.
Sure.
And you can also verify the information if his or her answer, or if their answer is in the affirmative. If they say yes, they have registered,
sure,
you can also go and find out.
And the next story is a very different story. The ECOMIG, we've been talking about Niger and possible ECOWAS intervention. Of course, ECOMIG troops are here, and the chap who was the head of the guards at State House for that ECOMIG team has ended his tour of duty, and he has bade farewell to the country and to President Barrow. Have a look, have a listen.
As a close protection officer to His Excellency the President is evidently a high-risk role, but he delivered with courage through what many describe as improbable journey. He has also demonstrated a high level of professionalism, led by an example, and instilled the values of life and service in his team with the highest standards of integrity and respect.
Zainab Fall of the Communication Department at the Office of the President, who chaired the occasion, said Major Kamara is a gentleman par excellence.
He came at a time when our country was going through the darkest moment in its history. He stayed and weathered the storm with us.
And there we heard that sentiment. I don't want to dwell too long on the sentiment, but I would dispute whether that was the darkest time in Gambia's history. I think we've had darker. But he came at an important time, and now he's gone. And there seems to be, our colleagues who were there said there was genuine emotion at his departure. Mr. Choi, as I said, part of the ECOMIG.
He came at a very sensitive period. There were so many threats and all of that. You know, leading to the intervention of ECOMIG. And he was the commander of the ECOMIG guards there.
At State House.
You know, at State House. I do go to the State House for coverages, you know, regularly. And I have seen him, the descriptions that these people have made about him.
Right.
Is quite true.
Okay. So he's
quite
professional.
His demeanor, comportment, and all of that. It's quite, you know, it's quite interesting and highly professional, you know, someone who had a very good relations with journalists, because usually the security and the journalists somehow
they bang heads, as they say.
Have too much interest in protecting the president. Journalists also want to access the president, you know, to ask questions and all of that. Sometimes there are some fracas. But he's someone who is always calm, someone who is always was always very professional, and, you know, did his job to the best expectation of people there, including the president, who was highly emotional. So this tells you how close he was with the president. Of course, he's supposed to be, you know, very close to the president, given his position as you know, a principal protection officer to our head of state. You know, Major Camara, you know, is going, but still the ECOMIG remains. They'll be at the State House. Hopefully, we'll have someone to replace him. Of course. And we expect him.
And he set a very high bar.
A very high bar for people to come and.
And we wish him well.
We wish him well in his future.
Thank you for that. And now on to a very, 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 very different story. And we've had some scouts from Hampshire in the United Kingdom. They came to the Gambia to link up with their fellow scouts, and they did some very interesting work. What was that work? Have a look.
It's been great working with the head teacher. He's been very enthusiastic and very helping us to work hard. And well done to all you scouts.
Lamin Sise was also a beneficiary whose house was renovated after it was destroyed by heavy rain. The scouts provided him with corrugated iron to re-roof his house.
And there you had our colleague, the dulcet tones of our colleague, and he was talking about what the scouts were doing. Very, very interesting there. I was a scout, Mr. Choi. I don't know if you ever were, but we certainly never went around fixing corrugated iron roofs on anybody's. But what we did do is service in the community, a very good thing.
Yes, it's good. I think I joined the scout very briefly and left.
Okay.
You know, because when I was very young, I used to be very much I felt in love with the drills and the marches.
The same. The uniform, everything.
The uniform.
Yeah.
I was so much inspired by
same
that.
here.
I said I want to join.
Same.
And I joined. But it wasn't my area. People were laughing at me and all of that. So because I joined very late. By the time I joined, these people have already gone very far. I think I needed some training, but I didn't have the patience. I was attracted to what they were doing, but I didn't have the patience. But scouts, really, these are very hardworking people. There is so much discipline instilled in them, and there is that spirit of, service to people.
That's right.
That is also inculcated in scouts.
There's service, there's adventure.
Yes, service, adventure, and all of that. So this initiative is very typical of what scouts do for society. And Gambia, scouts also, I have seen that while I was in the provinces, I have seen how much they've been, of support to communities, especially in offering their services in whatever way is needed. So.
Yeah, so to the Hampshire Scouts, we say thank you for coming. They cleaned the community, they renovated some schools, they built and rebuilt some that had desks that were broken and so on, and they did a thoroughly good job, and apparently, they're still here, by the way. And so, you know, if they're watching, thank you for coming, and, you know, when you do go, we wish you a safe journey back.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And this takes us to our last story. And Zimbabwe, they're having presidential and legislative elections this week, and as ever, it's not been smooth sailing. What am I talking about? Have a look.
In the 2018 election, Mr. Mnangagwa won in the first round with 51% of the vote. Mr. Chamisa, who came second with 45%, unsuccessfully challenged the result in court. Mr. Chamisa hopes to break the governing ZANU-PF party's 43-year hold on power. Zimbabweans will also elect 210 national lawmakers and over 1,900 local government and municipal leaders. This year's election, as with almost all the post-independence elections in the country, has been marked by irregularities. For instance, internet access has been restricted ahead of the elections, likely making it difficult for the citizens to stay informed.
There we heard our colleague Jordan Jai speaking. And Mr. Choi, what we heard there, marked by irregularities, internet shutdown and so on. I actually watched, and there was one polling station when 10 hours after polling had started, they hadn't delivered the ballot papers for people to vote. And so they had to go on radio and TV and announce that they would extend the time because of these problems to ensure that people did get a chance to vote. But Zimbabwe, a very interesting country, and one that is suffered from Western sanctions really, really badly.
It's a country that is really suffering, and I hope during this election, during the election and in the lead up to it, during campaign, issues came up about what is affecting that country. Economic crisis is really hitting them very hard. The last time we were listening to the BBC, and I heard that inflation went up to 300%.
That's right.
I was shocked.
Yeah, quite.
I was quite shocked. But I understand that Western sanctions are really contributing hugely,
massively,
towards towards the economic crisis that is going on in that country. But this election, really, many things are at stake. When it comes to addressing the the economic crisis, managing the economy to see how best people can be lifted out of poverty, basic commodities, the prices of goods and services to improve. Everything is is expensive in that country because when there's high inflation, then the cost of goods and services are also very high, and this has very negative impact on the lives and livelihoods of the people of that country. And whosoever is going to, win the elections, has a very huge task
ahead.
A country that is facing up to 300% inflation.
That's just in 1 year, by the way.
In 1 year,
quite. And inflation was already high, but we have to end it there before the producers come and drag us from our seats. But thank you, Mr. Choi, for your interjections, and to the viewers, thank you for watching. Until the next time, goodbye.